Hey, Mike, come here.
My manager yelled loudly. I hurried to his desk, wondering what I had done wrong.
You think you're something special, planning to take a day off for your wedding.
I couldn't grasp what he was saying. As I stood there stunned, he ranted on.
Someone like you, a low-level employee, trying to get time off is useless. You're fired.
He was still saying something, but I couldn't hear him anymore. What is this guy even talking about? Suddenly, something snapped in my head. There was no anger. I couldn't feel anything for such a vile person. Just emptiness spreading. All right, I quit. I just said it quietly. My heart was equally calm. Imagining this man's face turning pale in a few months, I felt pity for him even now. My name is Mike. I'm a 29-year-old salesman at a tableware company. As a kid, I never imagined I would end up selling tableware. I think I wanted to be a firefighter until 3rd grade. It was around that time that my life took a major turn. We weren't rich, but we were well off enough to go on family trips a few times a year. However, during the summer of 3rd grade, my dad's travel agency suddenly went bankrupt. Well, it must have taken some time to actually go bankrupt, but as a kid, it seemed sudden to me. Our life changed completely. Up until then, I could get anything I wanted or wanted to learn by asking my dad or mom. Of course, my mom, who didn't buy unnecessary things, didn't always buy me toys. But from the day of the bankruptcy, we couldn't afford anything. I literally was never bought anything. They didn't buy me the toys, games, or clothes I wanted. Even mentioning a trip felt embarrassingly out of reach. The only thing left was a massive debt. My dad worked tirelessly. He begged acquaintances to find him a job. He was always working, day and night. He would leave the house again just minutes after coming home. That was his life.
I'm sorry, really sorry.
He would say, stroking my head with a near-crying face every time he saw me. It's okay. I understood the situation somewhat, even as a child. So, I lived trying not to cause any more trouble. Then my dad passed away. He was overworked.
I'll be back soon.
He said that, but he never returned. When my dad returned home, he put him in a little box, and he was so much lighter. I strangely didn't cry. I felt sad, but seeing my crying mom made me feel like I couldn't cry myself, as if it was my duty. What my dad left us was a lot of debt. After my dad passed away, his sister, Susan, offered for us to live with her.
He left us a lot of debt, and I wish we could pay it off, but we don't have that kind of money. Still, I thought at least we could live together and I could help around the house and take care of Mike and Sarah.
Susan said apologetically. My mom shook her head at Susan's offer.
It would be too much to impose on you, so could you just take care of Mike? I'll figure out a way to settle his debts.
But
Susan suggested living together, but my mom never agreed. Eventually, Susan gave in, and it was decided she would only take care of me. But I couldn't bear to leave my mom's side. I need to stay with my mom and live with her. I don't remember why, but back then, I refused to be taken in by Susan. In the end, Susan and her family agreed to check on us regularly.
Whenever you need anything, just let us know.
She told my mom before leaving with her husband. My mom hugged me tightly. Without saying a word, she just cried and held me close. She worked desperately day and night. I had seen this scene before. Yes, it was exactly like my dad. I became anxious that she would follow the same path as my dad and clung to her, crying every night. After my dad's incident, my mom took breaks from work when she felt unwell to rest. She understood that if she made the same mistake as my dad, I would be left alone, and the debt would fall on me. So, she worked tirelessly without overdoing it. My mom had a treasured possession. It was a set of tableware given to her by a friend during her school days. The dishes were elegant, adorned with light green grass designs. From the moment she received them, my mom became a tableware enthusiast, even as a student. When my dad's business was thriving, she would always buy tableware she liked on our trips. My dad would laugh at her.
I just don't get the appeal of these dishes.
Now, most of my mom's collection had disappeared from our home. The only thing left was the grass-designed tableware from her school days. While he was alive, my dad often told her,
I don't understand the value of this tableware. Probably only you, my dear, can appreciate its worth. So no matter how poor we get, never sell it. You don't need to trade your memories for money to someone who can't appreciate their value.
He was always against selling any of the items with memories attached to them. After my dad died, my mom couldn't cover the debt with her job alone, and eventually, she sold all her tableware collection. I will never forget the look on her face at that time. I still clearly remember her pained, translucent-eyed expression. After selling all her tableware collection, the only things left in our house were dollar store dishes. It's not that dollar store items are inferior. They just lack the aesthetic pleasure of our previous dishes. I realized then that eating isn't just about taste, it's also about enjoyment with the eyes. Due to our poverty, we never had lavish meals or meat, but now we couldn't even enjoy the vibrancy of nice dishes. Our modest table was served daily with the same meal on a dollar store plate. But more than the meal, I hated seeing the look on my mom's face during dinner. I didn't know what to say to my mom, who was eating with an indescribable expression on her face. Hoping to one day see my mom happily looking at tableware again and smiling at the dining table, I decided to work at a tableware company. In front of me was a teacup. Indeed, in Europe, teacups are either vibrantly decorated or subtly elegant, with a variety of beautiful designs. Influenced by the dining table of my childhood, I learned firsthand that beautiful tableware and objects enrich life. After graduating from high school, I worked for a company well known locally for handling luxury tableware. I probably should have gone to college, but I needed to start earning money as soon as possible to pay off the debt. So, I focused my job search on Hazel Tableware, famous for its tableware sales that I loved so much. Since it was a high-end tableware company, the competition was fierce. Honestly, I wasn't sure if I would be hired. Especially since I only had a high school diploma and everyone else had graduated from prestigious universities. I couldn't help feeling inferior. Before I knew it, the interview was nearing its end, and it was time for the final question from Hazel, the president of the company. She asked just one question.
What is your favorite tableware pattern?
I remembered the company's website mentioned she preferred gold decorations. Knowing this, most job candidates answered, I like tableware decorated with gold. I considered tailoring my answer to match her preferences, but I couldn't lie, and said honestly, I like tableware with floral and plant designs. Hazel smiled warmly.
Me too. I think tableware with plant and flower designs is lovely.
And with that, the interview concluded. Later, I received a letter of acceptance for employment. With my first paycheck from Hazel Tableware, I bought a piece identical to one from my mom's former collection and gave it to her as my gift. She was overjoyed. Seeing her genuinely happy smile, I couldn't help but tear up. Looking at the tableware again, I appreciated the exquisite design, with delicate greenery and soft reds and blues of the flowers standing out. In my work, I designed many pieces using flowers as motifs, highlighting their beauty within this delicate framework. My colleagues suggested trying different designs, but I always came back to the floral theme. One day, my senior, Gianna, approached me.
Your floral designs are quite popular, especially among the ladies, but sticking to the same design shows you're still green. Oh, and by the way, that's not just my opinion, it's from Hazel's. Speaking of which, Hazel said you're up for the next business trip abroad. Talk about a fast track to success.
Gianna patted my shoulder. Wait, why me? I'm just a newbie, and as Hazel says, I have the flaw of only designing floral patterns. How can someone with such a narrow view like me go on a business trip abroad? While overseas tableware also features floral designs, they are often crafted with different techniques or are more flamboyant than what I was used to.
Maybe that's exactly why, to broaden your horizons and expand your perspectives.
I figured it was a good chance to expand my knowledge. I quickly packed and set off for Europe. Now, I find myself admiring a teacup. I got to see a lot of tableware and had the opportunity to meet with craftsmen. I showed them the tableware I designed and got their opinions, and we discussed what the finish would be like using overseas techniques, spending intensive time together. The highlight was visiting a workshop with an interpreter. A bald, bearded craftsman came out and scolded me.
Get out. I have no words for a young pink who doesn't understand the essence of tableware.
Through the interpreter, I showed him my designs.
What types of plants and flowers are these based on? What's the inspiration?
He asked quickly. At that moment, I painfully realized my own inexperience. I couldn't answer his question. Indeed, I had designed many floral patterns before, but I had never actually created anything based on real plants.
So, you designed this from your imagination. Using real plants as a motif would highlight their beauty even more. What a waste. But this is good in its own way. Well, it passes.
He said this and stroked his beard. I received approval from a local craftsman in a land far from America. It was an exhilarating experience. I was overjoyed that my passion for tableware was recognized even here. One spring, Fred, who came from a local branch office, became my direct supervisor. This encounter with Fred turned out to be the second major upheaval in my life. From his first day of introduction after the transfer, Fred was an odd presence. He bragged about being from a prestigious university, having helped an NGO during his student days, and basically flaunted his impressive life to everyone. However, that alone would have been harmless if I had just ignored it. On his first day, Fred bizarrely started asking everyone about their alma maters.
Mike, I hear you're well liked by seniors, including Gianna. But where did you go to university?
I didn't see how being liked was related to attending a famous university, but I answered while making coffee, thinking it was just small talk. Do you think I'm really liked? I feel like I'm just being saddled with chores. Also, I only graduated from high school. I offered Fred a cup of freshly brewed coffee, but he didn't take it. Fred, here you go. I looked at his face. He looked at me with scorn.
A high school grad. I can't possibly drink coffee made by someone without education. I don't see what's so good about you.
Fred then left somewhere. That's when my hell began.
This guy is just a high school grad. He can't do anything right. Lack of education is tough. Oh.
Fred started making remarks like that in front of my colleagues and juniors. Even in front of our business partners, he said it.
This guy only has a high school diploma. Really, he can't do anything right. So I just wish he'd stop being a nuisance to the company.
Fred said this nonchalantly. At first, my colleagues and juniors defended me.
Mike is really meticulous and skilled at his job.
But Fred began to favor them.
Come on, don't waste your life defending a low education guy. You graduated from a top university, right? You shouldn't be associating with high school grads.
And so, my colleagues stopped engaging with Fred, treating his comments as noise. However, behind the scenes, they would say, "Don't worry about what Fred says." But publicly, they stopped defending me, and I began to feel mentally down. Fred even started to insult my designs, which even European craftsmen had praised.
What is this? A man liking such frail decorations. Hazel likes gold decorations. You know, what's so good about these weeds?
Fred ridiculed my sensibilities daily and even began to harass me. Moreover, the harassment started. Right before business meetings, the necessary documents would be circulated to everyone except me.
I'll handle the rest, so you go do something else.
Then, when I was assigned tasks, he deliberately not do them, calling me out in front of everyone for unfinished work. Once, when I protested that Fred told me he'd handle it, he yelled at me fiercely.
You dare to blame your own mistakes on your supervisor.
My spirit was worn down by Fred. I couldn't come up with any designs, and work wasn't progressing. He kept calling me incompetent and useless. It was a cycle of these days. Since I started working, I moved out and have been living alone. I haven't told my mom because I don't want to worry her, but the truth is, the exhaustion from work doesn't easily heal in the solitude of my own home. The first to notice my declining state was my girlfriend, Ellie. Ellie and I had been dating for nearly 4 years, just before I joined the company. She was brighter and more active than me, with a wonderful smile. Although we didn't live together, she visited my place several times a week. When I couldn't even eat properly due to the stress from Fred.
Hey, Are you really okay? You'll be soon skinnier than me.
She said, half jokingly but clearly worried. Having experienced my mom's struggles in my childhood, I was afraid of worrying others. So I said with my best smile, I'm okay, I love my job and want to keep working at Hazel Tableware.
That's why your smile seems so sad. You're eating instant meals all the time when I don't cook, right? That's not good for your body.
Ellie embraced my head firmly. At that moment, I flashed back to being strongly, earnestly hugged by my mom when I was young. I realized I was worrying her again, and tears spilled over. My fighting spirit, not to lose to someone like Fred, crumbled before her kindness. The built-up hardship overflowed. My design, he called it effeminate. The design that Hazel, the craftsman, Gianna, and my mom were happy about, he denied it. Ellie just nodded kindly to my words. After talking for a while, I felt my heart grow stronger and more flexible. Sorry for worrying you all this time.
It's okay, don't worry about it. Besides, I've come up with a great idea.
As I apologized, Ellie playfully stuck out her tongue. A great idea. As I tilted my head, she said with a beaming smile,
Let's get married. And I'll support you, Mike.
I accepted her proposal without hesitation. Things progressed smoothly from there. Ellie and I decided on the wedding venue, the number of guests, and even chose her dress together. Every day confirmed that Ellie was an indispensable part of my life. My only regret was that we couldn't have a meeting of our parents. My mom was still repaying debts and, although much better than before, she continued to work every day. Ellie's mom was also a busy woman. Ellie lost her father to illness as a child, and her mom raised her while working. Since Ellie's mom is still active at work, matching her schedule with my mom's was difficult, leading to their first meeting at the wedding venue. I wished they could meet sooner, but since work was the reason, I couldn't complain. Both being from single-parent families, we understood the challenges of family life. It's not just financially. The wedding was set for a few months later.
Since it's a joyous occasion, maybe around May, when the weather is nice would be good. But of course, if you want to do it sooner, that's another story.
Her mother's opinion was also agreed upon by my mom.
I was thinking the same. I'm looking forward to meeting Ellie's mom. I hope I don't make a bad impression with my shabby appearance.
While searching for her best outfit, my mom mumbled,
It'll be fine. And you're not shabby at all, you know? You have great taste.
Noticing Ellie's gaze at the tableware, my mom said shyly,
Sorry for my old-fashioned taste, but it's a treasure to me, the same design as what I received from a friend long ago.
Ellie loved the tableware too.
It's beautiful, isn't it? Flowers and plants are just so lovely.
I felt truly fortunate to have chosen to marry her. After submitting my leave request at work, I informed Ellie. It's not confirmed until approved, but it's not the busy season, so I think it will be approved. Ellie replied immediately.
Got it. Hopefully, that nasty boss doesn't interfere, but he wouldn't go that far, right? It's our wedding after all.
Just as I was about to reply with right, Fred called out loudly.
Hey, Mike, come here.
Wondering if I had made a mistake at work, I hurried to Fred and asked, What's the issue?
What is this?
Fred was waiving the leave request I had submitted in the morning. I had informed the admin about taking time off for my wedding, but it seemed that Fred hadn't gotten the memo. Sorry for the late notice, but I'm getting married and thought I'd take some leave in advance, even though it's a few months away. I explained as diplomatically as possible. Fred scowled and came closer.
Really, the company's dead weight getting married. You think you're in a position to do that? It's absurd that someone like you is taking time off to get married.
Was it because I only graduated high school? I couldn't understand what he was getting at.
And what kind of foolish woman would marry a low-educated guy like you? Sorry, but I can't help but laugh.
He started laughing uproariously. Every day, he only caused trouble for me because I was a high school grad, and now he was insulting my loved one, which was despicable.
Someone like you, a low-level employee, trying to get time off is useless. You're fired.
He laughed and threw my leave request back at me. That's enough. I had no time in my life for someone like him. Just as well, if that's how he wants it. I understood. Then I'll resign. I simply stated it quietly. Then, as a precaution, I pulled out the resignation letter I had kept in my desk and thrust it at Fred. My emotions were numb. Beyond anger, just emptiness. I couldn't even muster any emotion for such a person. Ignoring my disdainful gaze, Fred continued.
Oh, resigning on your own, huh? That means it's a voluntary resignation. Don't rely on unemployment benefits.
Fred took my resignation letter. Yet, he hadn't accepted my leave request. I packed my belongings. It was fortunate that I just didn't have a job to take over. I had plenty of time. Time to devise a plan to bring Fred down. On the wedding day, as planned, many guests attended our ceremony. It's making the venue lively and festive. Especially the tableware used in the ceremony was all high-end from the company I used to work for, Hazel Tableware, with many featuring my mom's favorite floral designs. These were all items I personally selected with my own eyes. I thought it through until I was satisfied, and in some cases, I even designed them myself. Of course, they were there for our enjoyment, but I also considered making sure all the guests, including him, would be pleased. When the ceremony began, the first thing I looked for upon entering the venue was Fred's seat. Yes, Fred was also invited to the ceremony. Not as my guest, but as a guest of the bride, Ellie. In fact, Ellie's mother is Hazel, the current president of Hazel Tableware. In essence, Ellie was the daughter of the company's president. I later learned that Fred had been bragging to his colleagues about receiving an invitation from Ellie.
I've reached a position to be invited by the president's daughter. That's the power of a high-educated man with connections. You all should take a leaf out of my book and work hard.
He must have been over the moon arriving at the venue. The moment Fred saw me, he froze like a statue. He was so caught up, he didn't even check the groom's name. From the shadows, I watched, thinking he must have been surprised at the reception. But no, he truly was a complete fool. During the newlywed speech, Fred's face turned as pale as if he were sick, especially during Ellie's mother and the company president, Hazel's speech. But this was just the beginning. It was too early for him to be turning pale. Soon you'll realize who you've been tormenting all this time. I was laughing inwardly.
Well, I have an important announcement to make. I, Hazel, am planning to step down as the president at the end of this year. And I would like to nominate Mike as the next president.
Hazel ended her speech by introducing me. From the venue, there was a chorus of wow, followed by a round of thunderous applause. I stood up, raising my hand. Fred, who entered my field of vision, had gone beyond pale to completely white. He was practically the same color as the wall behind him. No surprise there. The person he had been harassing was going to be the next president. He must be thinking about his future now. My resignation letter had actually reached Hazel.
Oh, he was a poor performer, so I gave him some strict guidance, and he said he quit. But since he hardly had any work assigned to him, his absence wouldn't be an issue.
Fred said that to Hazel. Hazel did receive my resignation, but kept it on hold. Later, I received a message from her.
I'll keep your resignation for now. If you really want to leave the company, I won't stop you, but I truly think you're fit to be the next president. So please consider it, including the offer to become president.
Honestly, the thought of becoming president felt overwhelming, so I asked her, "Why me?" Hazel answered quietly,
Because you, like me, love floral designs.
and then she smiled kindly. As the mingling time began, Fred had already left. Well, I guess I got some sort of revenge. My mom finally arrived at the venue. Delayed due to her work.
It can't be helped if it's work-related, but we had to start on time because of the waiting guests, even though I felt bad for her.
We had started the ceremony without her.
So sorry I'm late.
My mom apologized to Ellie.
It's okay, don't worry. Besides, you're meeting my mom for the first time. Let me introduce her.
Ellie led her to Hazel. I followed them, and the moment my mom and Hazel saw each other, my mom rushed towards her.
Wait, Hazel, is that you?
No way. Sarah, really?
Hazel approached her excitedly. They held hands, chatting happily.
It's been so long. I've heard you became the president. That's amazing.
My mom said, tearing up.
It seems you've had your share of hardships. Mike told me about it, but I had no idea you were Sarah.
Hazel was crying too. I later found out that they were friends from their school days. Hazel was the one who gave the floral design tableware to my mom.
I'm sorry, I didn't want to sell it, but I had to survive.
My mom apologized.
What are you talking about? That's fine. Look, why don't you take some of this tableware home with you? We have a lot to catch up on. This design, he chose it, you know, you've got a good son.
The two women were giddy like children. I had never seen Hazel so playful before. It was their moment alone, flowing just for them. As an aside, I didn't know until recently that Ellie was Hazel's daughter.
My mom's busy.
She was so vague when I suggested the parents' meeting. And it was only when we were setting the date and venue for the wedding that I was formally introduced to Hazel as her mother. Honestly, my eyes nearly popped out. I was that surprised. My meeting with Ellie dated back to high school, during my frequent visits to the tableware museum managed by Hazel Tableware. Part of my reason for going was that I wanted to work for Hazel Tableware and considered it educational, but mostly I just loved the beautiful designs they created. One day, I found a girl crying in the museum. Feeling sorry for her, I couldn't help but speak up. She had just broken up with her boyfriend during a date there. To me, that was inconceivable. Surrounded by this beautiful tableware. To argue and then break up in such a heavenly place is the height of folly. As I spoke of the joy of admiring tableware with someone who appreciates it, she burst into laughter.
What's your name? You're quite unique, aren't you?
From there, sharing a common interest in tableware, we became friends for a few months before starting to date. So, I just thought she was another tableware enthusiast. Never did I imagine she was the daughter of the tableware company's owner. Ellie herself never spoke about her mother. The reason was that her ex-boyfriend, whom she broke up with at the museum, had been dating her because he knew her mother was the president of the company. She, wary of men after her money, had made a point of not telling me about it, I was later told. A few days after the wedding, Fred submitted his resignation. Frightened by his actions and realizing he had messed with the wrong person, he tried to flee. And he submitted his resignation not to Hazel or me, but to Ellie. He handed it to Ellie, who happened to be visiting the office.
I'm not an employee here, you know?
As Ellie was about to dismiss him coldly, Fred begged her.
I know, but I can't face Hazel or Mike. Please, pass this on for me.
Troubled Ellie was approached by Gianna, who had been promoted to an executive position, to inquire about the situation. After hearing the details, Gianna said with a snicker,
Look at this grown man crying in front of a young lady. I've heard all about what you did. I couldn't interfere since I was in different departments, but you really troubled my dear Junior, didn't you?
Gianna then grabbed Fred by the collar. Ellie stopped her, saying to Fred,
Instead of running away through resignation, why not live with the consciousness of someone who handles beautiful things, with a beautiful spirit? That's the proper way to settle this.
Fred cried and apologized.
I'm sorry.
No, you're apologizing to the wrong person. Go on, apologize now. 3, 2.
Gianna watched the scene, cracking her knuckles with a countdown. Spooked, Fred desperately sought me out, apologizing through tears. Years after that incident, as the president, I poured more effort into product development. Made possible by Ellie's support. After taking office, I decided to launch limited editions of series released in the 70s. While browsing through antique stores, I noticed that quite a few folks are eager to see old collections reprinted. The reissues were a hit, appealing not just to those familiar with the original era but also to young people who found them retro and cute. This success led to rapid company growth. My mom is now financially comfortable. She recently completed her collection, which she had to sell during tough times. Beautiful things transcend time and are loved by people. Observing my mom and Hazel, I truly understood this. What lay in the hearts of these two, who hadn't met for decades, was the beautiful entity of dishware. Now, as the president, I've become capable of introducing beautiful things to the world. I vow to continue confidently sending beautiful things globally.